All right, Hugh Marr, welcome to the Truth About Golf podcast. How are you doing today?
Yeah, very good, man. You?
I'm great, thank you. So I want to thank you for coming on. You are, well, we were just saying, I'm privileged because you are number one on the show, and there's a reason for it. So I'm really excited about it. Just talking to you and hearing more of what you have to say. And this is about how to make golfers better and get to some of the truths about golf. But since this is a broadcast that's going to go out to the world, for those of you that may not know you, what's a quick summary about who Hugh Marr is?
Lifetime golf coach. Was a pretty crappy player, but loved the game. I think when I look back at my early years as a golfer, I was kind of preparing myself to become a golf coach because I spent all my time reading, watching videos back in the day of videos, getting every magazine under the sun. So I became a bit of a golf geek, and hindsight's probably telling me that I was going to be a golf coach. Ended up coaching on European Tour, PGA Tour, Challenge Tour, Ladies Tour, which I did for a better part of 20 years. I coached the English boys national side. I coached the Surrey County side. And then kind of got a little bit disillusioned with dealing with elite players. Felt I had more to offer the golfing community, and then went into coach education. So basically my business now is educating coaches, albeit I still spend time coaching. I still coach 10 to 15 hours a week. But my real passion is helping golf coaches get better so that they can serve the game better.
Yeah, which is really genuine out of you, because I feel like we see some coaches moving to that, and I feel like some of them are doing it to not coach anymore. And one thing I love about you doing it is it's just so genuine, and how you talk about you have a core belief of coaches are, and I'll let you say the words, but they're helping grow the game in your thought, right? So they have to be
100%. I mean, golf coaches are, I think, the single biggest stakeholders in the game, albeit I'm coming from a slightly biased perspective. But we have a huge role in growing and bettering the game. And I the great sadness is I don't think many golf coaches appreciate quite how important they are for the game of golf. And let's face it, it's a pretty difficult game to love. It's expensive, it's hard. It's, as much as we're shouting about how inclusive we're becoming, it's not particularly inclusive. It takes huge amounts of time. And golf coaches are the people that can make this game as accessible as possible for everyone. So having a generation or future generations of great golf coaches, I think, is crucial if the game is to thrive and survive.
Yeah, well worded. So one of the reasons I fell in love with you and just talking to you was, saying I've had is that, golfers should get better immediately. And if they don't with me in a lesson, I should give them their money back. But I feel like with coaches, you hear all the time, you're going to get worse before you get better.
Why?
So I don't know where that came from, where that started, but so tell me about, let's not talk about those people, but if I go to a lesson with you, no matter who I am, an amateur, what can I kind of expect? What should I look for? Let's just go with this. I'm a 20 handicap player. What's going to happen during a lesson with you?
Yeah, you're going to get exactly the same experience as a top 50 player in the world would. I don't think there is a significant difference in how you approach golf lessons, whether it's really elite players or whether it's leisure players. But it's what I think is particularly important in any coaching exercise is that there is a very robust structure to ensure that you get to the bottom of that player's issues as quickly as possible. I share the same opinion as you that it shouldn't take that long for golfers to hit better shots. Now, that's not to say that they're going to master it straight away. Right. The actual process of owning any change takes time. But if you can't get a player to hit better shots pretty much immediately, I would doubt the validity of the information you've given. So a golf lesson with me will be, we try and create a very safe, welcoming environment at my facility. So everyone will get offered a water, a cup of coffee, beer, wine, whatever it is they fancy. We can accommodate. So really the first goal is to try and make the student as comfortable as possible in what is quite a daunting environment for a lot of people, particularly for club players. I have what I call my coaching cycle, which I work through with every single player, which is to analyze what is going on, the what of the golf lesson. Then I want to diagnose why that's happening. And all of this is done before the next phase, which is coaching, which is how we're going to make that player better. And then the final phase, if you like, in any coaching exercise is reviewing what you've done and then effectively going again. So I will use TrackMan, Swing Catalyst, I'll use various tools, HackMotion, to get what I believe to be relevant data for that player. I think every golf lesson should be based on something tangible. How are we going to measure your improvement? How are we going to measure where you started this session? I'll obviously video. I'll video from 3 angles, from into the back, down the line, and from front on. I run through my analysis and diagnosis protocols, which involve me looking for certain key points in the golf swing, so that helps me understand what it is that this player does that produces the outcome they have already, and subsequently what they need to do to produce better outcomes. That's it.
But sounds like a well laid out plan. So one of the things with golf, and we'll see if we can get more to the bottom of this, since we're trying to help golfers out today a bit. Where do you think lies? I've always been amazed in golf. Like, first off, the myths and old wives' tales in golf, and how they are just so proliferated and so huge in golf, and how and really how bad it hurts the golfer. Right? It's not like these benefit them in any way. They make them, in my mind, most of them make them worse as a golfer. So just a big, broad question in your mind, because I can't find it in any other sport. Where is it in this sport that a guy that plays a game 5 times a year is telling somebody else how to swing or keep their head down? And how did we get into this, that this is happening in golf, that this is what golf is today? Well, you top it, you yell at them to keep your head down, and this is some guy who plays 4 times a year. So, like, how did this happen?
I think if you look at the history of golf coaching, and that's something that I explore with all the coaches that I mentor, if you look at the history of golf coaching, it becomes pretty obvious why it happens. Because every piece of golf advice, up until very recently, has been driven from how the best players do it. Okay. And the correct way to do it is generally attached to who the best player of the time is. So who the marquee player of the age is. And guess what? These guys are just good. And what they feel they may be doing and what they are actually doing might not be the same thing. But also as soon as say Sam Snead tells you this is what he feels he's doing, that now becomes a truth. That becomes a golfing truth. And basically these dogmas have just kind of grown arms and legs over the years, so that now we're surrounded by a ton of these golfing truths, these golfing dogmas. And there is conflict just now between what you'd call an old school coach and a more modern golf coach, and the modern golf coaches think the old school guys are basically coaching by fable, and the old school guys think the more modern guys are purely reliant on technology. Yeah. The reality is that great coaching is a combination of the two. Great golf lessons are a combination of the two. And I've been having this conversation with one of my classes or programs this morning, that if you're going to coach golf, you've got to, and you're being authentic about it, you're being honest about it, you've got to know that what you coach has the effect you think it's going to have.
Meaning, if you tell them to do something, you have to know the effect before you say it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So if you tell them to get a flat wrist, you better know what's going to happen with the other matchups when you give them another closing move.
Correct. And understanding that all golf swings aren't created equal. I think one of the biggest issues, particularly when we look at unconventional golf swings, is that we may actually end up pulling out the piece of the puzzle that makes it work. And as golf coaches, we're and unfortunately, our market golfers are conditioned the same way, that we're conditioned to believe that you go for a golf lesson to be told what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my belief that the first thing you should be asking in a golf lesson is, well, actually, why does this work? Because if you pull the wrong bit out, you've just made the game even harder for the person in front of you. Yeah. And also, if you thought about it from a pure business model perspective, and also from a kind of human perspective, if you go for a golf lesson and continually get told that you're not doing it right, and we've actually got to this ludicrous stage now, Erik, where you could hit great shot after great shot after great shot, and someone will tell you you're not hitting your great shots the right way.
Yeah.
But if you continually go back and get told you're doing stuff wrong, at some point you're going to stop going back. And from a business model perspective, that's a pretty crappy way of doing it.
Yeah, very much so.
Pretty much every golfer that I've ever worked with has got components that work. And getting rid of them is a pretty shitty idea.
Getting rid of the ones that work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that something that should be focused on first, is looking for what works? Or
yeah, I mean, the first question I'm asking with every student is, okay, well, why does this work? And I think one of the things that I tend to spend longer on than most is that I spend a huge amount of time analyzing and diagnosing, to the point where it may even be a little uncomfortable for both me and the student, because he's been there 20 minutes and I've not given him any advice yet. But I need that period of time to make sure that I am giving them the right piece of information when I do decide to coach.
Right. So following up on that a little bit, how do you handle the student that is hitting a ball and he looks back at you after each one? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What's your talk to that person on how they should be handling that different when we're constantly looking back at you for an answer, or wherever you're standing for an answer on what they did each time?
Number one, I'll explain that I'm going to take some time to analyze this so I know that I'm getting it right and to diagnose it. I'll explicitly state that, because that already basically covers your ass. And I'll just ask them to keep hitting, just keep throwing questions at them. It's something that, if you were to make a sort of comparison between what I would refer to as expert coaches and non-expert coaches, I think the amount of time an expert coach takes to analyze and diagnose is generally longer.
That's interesting. Okay.
Probably driven by the less expert coach's ego, that they want to jump in and say, well, you do this, this, and this, and you'll be a better golfer. And the student goes, oh, wow, you got that so quick. Well, I ain't seen many golfers improving that way.
Which is the number one goal, improvement. Yeah. So let's talk. If you look at somebody, if you're looking at a golfer comes into you, the model or how you see them first is, are you looking at how their body moves? Are you just looking at impact, number one? If you just want to get them hitting better, what's your model of looking at them to make them better? And how can golfers take that model and think about it, instead of thinking about their elbows and all these 52 other things they think about? How should they reframe kind of how they're doing things? Because I whenever I ask a question, is, first off, everyone is consistency issue, right? And then every time I ask about ball flight, I rarely get it's so rare to get an answer about ball flight. So how's your ball flight? Oh, well, my hips moved too much here. I'm like, I just want to know what the ball was doing. So how can we reframe to those things that matter?
I think that is more prevalent in North America.
Okay,
and Asia, curiously enough. But the truth of the matter is that if we were to define good technique for me produces consistent, predictable outcomes.
Okay.
Or functional outcomes.
Okay.
And every golfer who gets paid to play golf, they get paid to hit good golf shots. And if they don't hit good golf shots, they don't get paid. In fact, it costs them money. So I'm always looking at ball flight, listening to strike, seeing how the club's interacting with the ground. I want to get a very deep understanding quickly of what that player's impact characteristics are.
Okay.
Because if you get that right, if you spend time exploring that, it's literally telling you where to coach. Okay, if the ball is curving to the right in the air, we know that the face is right of the direction that guy's swinging it. Okay, we know that. And it is literally red flag flying. Look at his face position at impact. Okay, there's not, and your TrackMan data or your quad data will do exactly the same. It's just telling you where to coach. So I know that once I've seen the ball behave in a certain way in the air, if it's an open face characteristic, I'm going to go and open my toolbox and I'm going to go straight to the drawer that says open face at impact.
Yes. And
then I've got all the various tools that I've built up over the years that I will use to help that player get better.
Okay.
So ignoring, I made a post about this last week, actually. I put something up, a picture of Tiger down the line, and he has a very, very left swing direction, but the ball starts right of target and turns to the left. Mm-hmm. So the question I put out on Instagram was, well, what ball flight is Tiger hitting here? And pretty much everyone comes.
Everybody's to the left.
It's a fade shot.
Yeah.
How many of you guys that are coaching and girls that are coaching for a living have just looked at the golf swing, looked at the divot going left, and assumed that it's a fade? When actually, if you look at the freaking golf ball, it started right at target, and it definitely ain't cut.
Right.
So actually, and maybe one of the downsides of technology now, Erik, is that we become so consumed with the data because as soon as it's presented on a screen, it's binary, and we actually forget to look. We forget to listen. We forget to watch the movement. All of which are components that give you, as I said, they literally tell you where to coach.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good post to put up there for that. So I do want to get in more of that to impact with you. So maybe people listening can understand it a little better, understanding like low point and understanding why I can't fully look at my divot and understand exactly 100% what's going on. Now, the guy that's 11 to the left, he can probably look at his divot and have some idea, right? Because he's so steep and deep and whatever with that guy. But like with Tiger's thing, so if we're going to explore impact to get him to hit better, I want to hear from you, like the easiest way to explain to students what low point is and how that affects what they're doing, and how we can get them to move that, more forward so they can get a better, understand what impact is. How would you explain that, Tom?
Well, low point is basically, the way I define low point or describe low point is it's the point where the sole of the club is furthest from your chest, which is, I mean, you listen to the Golf Machine guys, it's basically left armpit. I think that's probably about right. So I'll explain it to them and I'll illustrate to them in that manner.
Okay.
And then the majority of players will accept that they have to take a divot. So they accept that the club has to hit the ground. So the first thing I'll try and shift is I need to make sure that player's concept and understanding of what they're trying to do is sound. So the first question will be, right, well, you agree that the club needs to hit the ground, right? Yeah. Okay, so where does it hit the ground? And the amount of times where players, we're talking decent players, will answer that, well, it needs to hit the ground under the golf ball.
Yep.
So shifting concepts, absolutely massive in this.
So explaining to them what it is and what it looks like and what they should be doing. Yep. Okay. So then how do we get them there?
So give them an understanding. And then it's basically running through your analysis and diagnosis process. But if they understand what they're trying to do, number one, and they have got a concept of what low point actually is, it's basically the point the club hits the ground. That's an easier way to describe it. Then you need to ensure that you have got a suitable set of tools to help them do that. So I use a lot of kids' chalk. So I'll draw lines on the ground to represent target line, ball position line. I'll put lines on to help illustrate them to where we want to hit the ground.
Okay.
So generally my training or my coaching at that stage is very visual cue led.
Okay.
Because we can all explain what we need someone to do.
Right.
And they won't do it.
Yeah. They need to see something.
So turning it into some kind of tool that they can take away. And basically I'm handing out pieces of chalk left, right, and center here to people so they can go away and practice that on their own.
Well, we know you use very expensive training aids. We already know
Yeah.
that.
I've got a thing about that. Yeah.
Which I love. One of them you gave me, the paper plate one, we can talk about that later,
Yeah.
is what I've been working with that, and I've been working with it, and it's just one of the best. That drill is just awesome working with it. And it's a paper plate, and I spent a bunch of money on training aids over the years to find out I don't use any of them hardly.
Yeah. Well, with training aids, you've got to make it easy for the player to use them.
Yeah.
So as soon as they have to go online and order something, and then they get it, they don't know how to use it, it doesn't last long. So that's why I tend to work with training aids that are not really meant to be training aids.
Yeah. So what do you see the most, why people can't get forward? Is it, so I could be wrong, but I'd love to get your opinion on this. I feel like Jack Nicklaus, and I read this in a magazine when I was young, he talked about 80-20. You got to get 80% of your, I think he used weight back then back.
Yeah.
And I feel like everybody is taking that, so everyone's way too far back on their back foot when they shouldn't be by the time they get to the top or whatever. They're just stuck on their back foot. Now, is that the biggest thing you see is the reason in most amateurs that they cannot, one of their big faults of why they can't get forward?
Yeah, it's concept and understanding, but that's driven by the industry dogma that you have to shift your weight to the right if you're a right-handed player.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of these things where.
Why is that?
Because that's been written by every great golfer through history.
Because they didn't know they were really moving a lot of pressure? Is that because they didn't understand what they were doing?
Well, I've had this conversation with some coaches this morning that if we went back to 1950 or 1960, somewhere in there, generally all the biggest hitters would have the most turn of the pelvis and probably have the straightest trail leg, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the industry would start to coach big turns. And you know what? I'm pretty sure, I may not know I've done it in the last week. I've asked someone to turn more to help them hit it further.
Yeah.
But the fact that we didn't understand that it was pressure shifting rather than weight shifting is irrelevant.
Okay.
It's completely irrelevant. We just happen to understand it a little bit more now. But it doesn't mean that whoever was helping Sam Snead hit better shots, it doesn't mean they were wrong. But the wording that was used at the time then becomes the industry standard because it was Sam Snead, it was Jack Nicklaus, they're two of the greatest that ever lived. They moved their weight to the right, so they then must be something you have to do, like keep your left arm straight, like keep your head still.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, I love looking at the picture of Hogan. How straight he is and how he is right over the top of the ball at the top, straight up, pretty much straight, pretty close straight back leg, right? Leaning kind of forward. So that's pretty evil though, to be right over the top for a lot of people. That sounds stack and tiltish, which to a lot of people is pretty evil.
Well, it then becomes an industry dogma, right? Because stack and tilt is the devil's work to some, and it's God's elixir to others. Yeah.
So quickly for people listening, how would you wrap? What is stack and tilt quickly? Like I know there's the 10 words, but if you had to say quickly, explain to people, what is it?
Stack and tilt is effectively a coaching system, which I personally believe is very, very sound. Mechanically, it's very, very sound. Its genesis was like a lot of these systems was driven by Golfing Machine, which is not the easiest read on the planet. Whereas the stack and tilt book, if I'm asking a coach to starting from scratch, I'll say, right, there you go, read stack and tilt, start there.
Yeah.
Because it's a system. It's an organized way of improving golfers. It's an organized way of becoming a better golfer. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about it is because it's to me a fast way to get to, and a lot of people have coached it for years. I work somewhat similar, I think, just not under that name. They maybe figured it out on their own, that's an easier way to have them more on top of the ball instead of so, far backwards.
But if you look at a number of the sort of central tenets of the stack and tilt system, they are mechanically advantageous.
Yeah.
Okay. Would we agree that a center pivot with a significant pressure shift is mechanically advantageous? Well, yeah.
Yeah, but it goes against 80-20. Getting that 80-20 back is, yeah, as I said.
But again, if you look at it if you look at it from a data perspective, it doesn't, because you're still there's still 80% of your pressure in a lot of instances, more than 80% of your pressure moves to the right.
Early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when it moves,
yep,
it's different.
It's the when that's always different.
You've still probably got about 80% of your pressure under your lead foot at the point of impact.
Yep.
It just gets there much sooner. We understand that now.
Yeah.
So we're not, it's very easy to run around and say, well, they were wrong and we were right. No, we just understand more about it.
Yeah. I was watching a broadcast with, I don't know if it was about a month ago, a little bit. I don't get to watch much, but Azinger badly had hit one. And he said something about how Stack and Tilt had screwed his game up for years, and it's nice to see him back. And I wanted to ask him, like, why? What did it do so bad for him? Those were some of his best years, I feel like, with him.
Yeah, I think you might need to look at the stats there before throwing that out there.
Which they don't seem to, these announcers. That's a sore spot with me.
he wasn't far off winning a US Open doing that.
Oh, well, I know. I agree. Well, Azier is the same guy. So, I mean, when out in Phoenix talking about the pull towards the mountains, I don't know. I don't know if you believe in that, if there's a pull a certain way on the greens, but to some magnetic or some mountain.
I mean, again, someone said this to me years ago, and it's kind of stuck with me. What you can assert without evidence, you can dismiss without evidence.
You got a very good one.
I still like that. Okay,
that's a very good one.
Make that statement, Zinger, but you're going to have to justify why it's the case.
I think it was or was it Faraday? Faraday. I can't remember who it was. Somebody said something really quick on the broadcast to shut him up really quick. It was really kind of funny, because it's just like, what are you even saying? It's just crazy. But that's what he said there. I hear, we hear it all the time in golf course. Everything rolls towards here. Everything goes towards here. Now, I mean, I guess they do build golf courses to run greens certain ways, but it doesn't mean it's going to go against gravity because your mountain is over there or whatever.
But we know it can fight gravity.
Yeah.
Gravity has got enough evidence to suggest that it's going to win every time.
Right. Yeah.
But this does raise an interesting point in terms of what I think expert coaching looks like. And we've talked about how I think expert coaches take longer to analyze and diagnose than others. I think the single biggest differentiator between expert coaches and everyone else is the quality of questions that expert coaches ask. They are much better critical thinkers. And if you're the same here, right? That if you're presented with a new piece of information or a new principle, then you're going to start to ask questions about it to decide whether you think it is worthwhile or not.
Yeah.
Critical thinking is the single biggest skill that we lack as an industry, as golf coaches lack as an industry. Because if we start to ask better questions, we're not just going to accept, for example, that shifting 80% of your weight to the right side is good. Yeah.
It almost seems like a lost art, though, a lot, like critical thinking. But it's easy not to. It's the easy life to not think that way.
Well, but again, it's the way humans are conditioned. We're conditioned to find the simplest way to do everything. So it's easier to look at Google and come up with something than it is to actually think about it and ask questions.
Yeah,
that's been the case forever.
Yeah.
It's just easier now to come up with bullshit answers.
Well, and they're not going to know. The student won't know. Which I always, it's the same thing I think with doctors too. Always hear like, the greatest coach or the greatest, doctor. I'm like, well, how many surgeries have you had? Like, you only seen one. You've only been to this one coach, so you don't know that there could be better out there to help you get better. It's always sad to me when students don't get better. They come and they've just struggled for so long and they don't have the right opinion or right viewpoint or image in their mind of what a golf swing even looks like. And I'll spend a lot of time talking about it to them to get them to understand it. Like you've talked about, to you have to have a visualization in your mind to reproduce it, I would think, of what it's supposed to be, at least some kind of thought, instead of getting right behind the ball, casting to get back there. So, let's technology.
Mhm.
Has it made golfers better? Let's go post TrackMan. So since TrackMan's come out, has it made golfers better? And if not, like, why not? Or why has it? I guess it would
Made
have to make
golfers,
coaches better first to make the players
it
better.
made
But
it made golfers better at the top level.
okay,
Or again, this is all my opinion, but I mean, I'm pretty sure I can justify it. I think it's made golfers better at the top level because they understand how far the ball goes. They understand what their optimum numbers are. They understand how to produce those numbers. I think it's helped them understand how to adjust for climate change, elevation change, stuff like that. Has it made coaching better? On the whole, no, because it's just another opportunity to spurt information, and gathering data and coaching are not the same thing.
Right.
Fundamentally different things. Mm-hmm. So gathering data and explaining that data to the student is not the same as coaching them to produce better shots and better data. I believe that technology in general has given us a much better understanding. So we go back to the discussion we've had about sort of turning and pressure shift. It's given us a much, much better understanding. I think technology is exceptional for coaches as a tool to validate their beliefs, their truths. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to ask someone to do it and it doesn't have the effect that I think it would on the golf ball, then that's an opportunity for me to go away and learn. It's an opportunity for me to go away and get better. It's a great opportunity. I think all technology is great for validating. It's great for actually finding out what you advocate. Is that function? Does that make players better? Yeah.
Okay. I guess we did find out TrackMan helped prove some things as myths, right? Path, first face, where the ball was coming, which is all. I love asking coaches.
But 1968, Erik, there's a book produced that was telling us this.
Well, that's why I love asking coaches like you, like how. So, and you saw it then. I mean, you had an idea back then, knowing that this may not be right. That's all path. But so, if somebody was hooking, would you tell them just keep going more and more right, because then you'd get the hook bigger? So, did something just seem wrong to you back then, or how were you able to do that before you actually knew the exact thing and you were told the wrong thing by PGA and whatever?
We don't know. It's hugely frustrating to me that golf coach education was based around principles that were very seriously flawed, and we had the information all along. That's just a source of frustration, nothing else. But you take TrackMan out of the equation here, that it doesn't matter what you know or what you believe to be the cause and effect. If you see a ball curving excessively one way or the other, you know there is some kind of argument going on between path and face, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to change what you coach, because the more the ball's hooking, the more closed the club is to the face, club is to the path. Yeah. So you're still going to work on trying to narrow those vectors to ensure that you take the curvature away. So I don't think that's not the fault of having the wrong information. I'm still going to fix a guy by hooking it by trying to get the face closer to the path, just as I am with a slice.
But the information of the day didn't tell you that. The information of the day would have told you to get him to hit more to the right to fix it, as far as path, right?
But then
if you follow just the information,
you'd have seen the ball hooking more, and then you figure out why that path face vector has got bigger, and I need it to get smaller for this guy to hit better shots.
Yeah. So you figured it out. I mean, the coaches figured it out.
You look at Snead. So Snead used to talk about how, when he was asked how he hit draws and fades, he would say, "Well, to hit a fade shot, I point the face left to target."
Yeah,
he knew.
Yeah, well, he did know. I feel like a lot of them say some different things, but it really doesn't matter. They get it done.
But the industry is now such a. It's so important to have something to sell in the industry. It's so important to be seen as something of a personality, or to have some kind of intellectual high ground over everyone else, that it's very easy to sell the bad. You're selling the wrong information, or you're selling bad information. The truth of the matter is that it's not like golf coaches only started to improve golfers the minute TrackMan came along.
Well, right. They were terrible before 2003 or 4. They were awful.
Not like a 1973 golf lesson was never going to improve a player. Players were getting better. Golf coaches were helping players get better. So it's again, it's the same stuff. If in 1953, if you were wanting someone to hit it further, there's a decent chance you get to turn more. Now, the fact that they maybe didn't understand that difference between weight shift and pressure shift is completely irrelevant, because by turning more, they were shifting pressure better and they were hitting it further. Yeah. It doesn't mean these guys are wrong. It doesn't mean that we're the only people giving good golf lessons. It just means we understand it better, which should result in us giving better golf lessons. Unfortunately, it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I have a tough time ever going on Facebook or anything to some of these coaches' rooms and looking at it, because you'll see this thing. Well, somebody will say Harmon's an effing idiot, or Butch Harmon's an idiot, or I'm just going like, what? Like, who's an idiot? Like, or they'll go off on these old guys. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I've always sought out people that have been around, coaches that have been around, to learn from. I think they have a much better ability to communicate. Number one. And to be able to do that stuff, I think coaches today have it very easy, very, very easy to coach. You have all the tools in front of you. You have all the truths in front of you. And if you go about it the right way, I think it could be easy, but it's versus the old days where you didn't have the answers. But I don't know if it is, but I feel like it should be easy to, so many people have done the work for the coaches today to know a lot of what the answers are. Like, Matt, you may not have to.
But the answers aren't the gold here, Erik.
Yeah.
The answers aren't the gold. It's the understanding of why that's the answer that's the gold.
And that's not thought about. That's the critical thinking.
That's critical thinking. The deep understanding of the why is more important than the what. That just telling someone that pressure shift is important. Well, actually, why?
Yeah, I mean,
you keep asking coaches why, you soon get to a point where you can identify their understanding level. It gives them. It's much easier now for people who coach a game of golf to be able to give answers, but I don't think it's easier for them to coach, because they don't understand the subtlety, the nuance. They don't understand it in that detail that's required to be any good.
Yeah, I try to like Terry Hashimoto. I like hearing him talk about pressure mats. So, I'll call and ask him. I have mine, but I want to test it and kind of see what I think, and then ask him. And it's interesting. I feel like just learning that way and asking questions, because I remember Chuck Cook saying when I was very young to always ask other teachers questions. Try to follow them and just learn from them what the great knowledge they have. And I feel like today, all these coaches, since they have the technology, they have the data, that they know it all. And I feel like there's just so much to learn from other, coaches. And
well, that's why I've created my education programs, because there isn't a high functioning community in golf coaches where we have this opportunity to share best practice, share concerns, ask questions.
It's a weird industry like that.
Well, for some reason, we all know more than everyone else, and we're all better than everyone else. And the truth of the matter is that collectively we can all grow much quicker. And you know what? We're never going to run out of bad golfers to coach, ever. There's enough bad golfers for every coach on the planet, and some.
I use Sportsbox AI a bit, and I showed it to another coach, and he said to me, he's like, "Oh man," because now they have watch lists, so they can do stuff on their own. He's like, "Man, now we're going to be running out of the job." Like, "Oh no, we'll have even more once they get a hold of this."
Even more work.
Yeah. once they're looking at these avatars and all this stuff, there'll be even more work. Okay, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to end it like this. So we have, I'm going to go with the typical golfer. He's over the top, right-hander, probably about
Yep.
eight left,
Yep.
and obviously hitting way to the right, and his
Yep.
low point is behind. He's stuck on his back foot. Give me a couple drills that you would maybe work with this guy to get him to make some better contact and get rid of his slice.
So if he's swinging it way left.
Yep.
So that's a left component, right?
Yep.
So how can him swinging it way left result in the ball going way right?
Say that again. I didn't hear it.
So if he's swinging it way left, that's a left golf swing component, right?
Yeah.
So how can someone swinging it left hit it way right?
Well, it's club face, right?
Yeah, there's your answer.
Yeah. So you're going to work on club face first with him. So how can this golfer close his club face better?
Tighten that vector
Yep.
between face and path to the point where they hit proper golf shots that are straight and probably pulled.
Okay.
Because then you've got the opportunity to coach the next bit, which is shifting it all back into a more appropriate place.
Where do you see the issue with club face, just in general with most club golfers, that it's wide open? Are you looking at where it is at the top, or do you not care till it gets down to like P6, or where do you make your assessment on the club face being wide open?
Impact.
Okay.
So if you want my coaching process, if you like, I'm analyzing at P1, at P7. So always starting at impact, and then I'm going straight to P1. What can I change in this player's start position to improve P7?
Okay.
So there's a very decent chance that grip, face position, shaft position, ball position, all of which are related, are contributing to that player hitting a slice.
The face open, yeah.
So there's a very decent chance that their concept tells them they need to get it in the air, so the ball position gets further forward. That's now leading to left swing direction. If they have the ball forwards, the shaft back, and face square, the face is now very, very open. Yep. So that's a contributing factor. And then if they decide to shift to the right, that's creating even more left components with that very open face, which is creating even more slice.
Yeah.
So first job is their start position appropriate for the shot they want to hit?
Okay.
So grip, shaft position, face position is where I'd start all the time.
Love it.
And
you're going to fix most. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. You just helped a lot of golfers.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, it's a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and more than happy to do this anytime. I love talking about golf.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
No, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you.